everyone, welcome to the third episode of our podcast series, Plague and Persecution, which was created to educate our peers at U of M about Catholicism and its influence on perception of the European Black Death in the 1300s. My name is Emma, and I'm a senior in the University of Michigan School of Public Health working towards my undergraduate degree. In this episode, we'll be zooming in on the Catholic Church itself during the time of the Black Death. Specifically, I'll be talking about the levels of power within the Church and how they each reacted to the persecution of the Jewish community. If you haven't listened to the first two episodes of this series, recorded by my peers Anita and Catherine, be sure to check those out first. They give important background information on this topic that helps to explain what this episode discusses. Now let's jump into the world of the Catholic Church during the Black Death. The three levels of the church hierarchy we'll be looking at today are local church and parish leaders, the Pope at the time, Pope Clement VI, and the Holy Roman Emperor of this time, Charles IV. While they may or may not have had this intention, their opinions on Jewish persecution and the Black Death itself ultimately changed the structure and trajectory of all of Christianity. Now I'll quickly explain what the structure of the Catholic Church looked like during this point in history. In this context, we are talking about the Roman Catholic Church. The Catholic Church was heavily intertwined with the government throughout all of Europe. They were very involved in making legal decisions and ruling on the laws of the land. The highest ranked leader in this institution is the Holy Roman Emperor. The Holy Roman Emperor is seen as a divine ruler, both leading the Church and acting as the head of state. Directly below the Emperor was the Pope. Historically, although the Pope often advised the Emperor on large decisions and topics of the government and the Church, they have often been known to disagree with each other on some matters, despite both being so high in power. After the Pope comes cardinals, archbishops and bishops, deacons and priests, then monks and nuns. Deacons, priests, monks, and nuns are all at the local level of the Church. Let's now get into the opinions and actions of a few of the levels of the Church in regards to Jewish persecution during the Black Death. The first level of the Church we'll be covering is the highest ranking, the Holy Roman Emperor. Charles IV, unfortunately, did much to villainize and harm the Jewish population during the Black Death. Mainly, he incentivized violence towards them. According to the book Jews and Judaism in World History, he instigated riots against Jews and their property and gave immunity to all rioters from punishment. This, being essentially law of the land, was very devastating for both the Jewish population across Europe and those in support of them. As we will discuss later, this position taken by Charles IV gave the green light to those below him who wished to take their anger out on Jews for their own loss during the Black Death. It also rendered other attempts at saving and protecting the Jews to be less effective. Unlike the Holy Roman Emperor, the Pope tried to protect the Jews. Pope Clement VI attempted to use a papal bull in their defense. Remember how I mentioned that the Church was heavily intertwined with the government? Well, a papal bull is an official, historically significant document issued by a pope within the Catholic Church that is essentially a law. Clement's papal bull stated that Jews were not responsible for the Black Death, and that they should be protected. It also highlighted key issues and prohibited them, banning Christian on Jewish violence, calling upon clergy members to protect Jews undergoing legal persecution, and more. According to the Pontifical Institute of Medieval Studies, the Pope also tried to speak out in addition to creating legislation for the Jewish community. One of the things he said was that anyone who sought to blame others for the illness, in this case the bubonic plague, had been seduced by the devil. This was a very important moment in Catholic history. For such a powerful entity to speak out and create legislation protecting a minority group that does not share the same beliefs as his own people was unheard of at this time. Charles IV's opinion may be higher up in power than Pope Clement VI, but Clement's opinions were much more monumental in the greater picture of empathy and inclusion. The different responses of the Holy Roman Emperor and the Pope had both generated downstream consequences for the Church. While the Holy Roman Emperor instigated the use of religion as a weapon, the Pope inspired the idea that kindness and empathy can extend beyond religious divide. As Catherine mentioned in episode 2, One of the leading myths that led to Jewish persecution is the lie that Jews explicitly poisoned wells, causing people to get sick. At the local level, this sparked outrage. While Pope Clement VI papal bull could speak Jewish protection into legal terms, enforcement of this doctrine was not always followed. Many local parish leaders did little to protect Jewish communities, often turning a blind eye to violence, riots, and other harm. Additionally, as mentioned before, the Holy Roman Emperor's opinion was often used as an excuse for violence at the local level. Not every locality was involved in persecution, but the chaos of the Black Death only heightened emotions, and people found someone to blame. Let's now talk about the fallout of these very drastically different responses to Jewish persecution. At this point in time, the Catholic Church was very united. There was occasional discrepancies between levels of the Church, but they were overall a unified, efficient hierarchy and union of Church and state. The Black Death, however, threw a wrench in this entire operation. Not only did internal disagreement weaken the Church, external forces contributed to its weakening as well. Catholic Christians had been led to believe up until this point that their church leaders were divine beings who would protect them from harm. Instead, countless lives were being taken by the bubonic plague during the Black Death. People began questioning why this was happening, and the Church could not give anyone sound answers. Why couldn't their all-powerful emperor and pope protect them from illness? Are they simply ordinary people with no religious power? This podcast and episode are in no way trying to demean Catholicism or Christianity. Most of the sources we have found have shown that reaction to the plague among Catholics varied greatly, with some becoming less religious and some more. Also, more of the doubt that was generated was towards the Holy Roman Emperor, not God. This doubt, which is entirely valid, led to a hesitancy in the belief of the power of higher status Catholics. Additionally, local and state church leaders were dying from the plague, leaving people without guidance and structure. According to the Christian Publishing House, this indirectly led to the rise of other Christian movements, such as the Flagellants and the Protestants. In Protestant reform especially, it was inspired by a movement from faith in an emperor to faith in one's individual relationship with God. The Black Death was a very pivotal event for the Catholic Church. It took this very effective, almost machine-like system and powerhouse in both church and state and completely threw it in disarray. Today, we now have many denominations within Christianity, and in many places around the world, religion is no longer involved in government. One definite takeaway here is how important it is to follow a religion that aligns with one's values. Additionally, it highlights how religion can be weaponized to throw blame and harm others. Thirdly, Pope Clement VI's actions highlight how powerful it can also be to bridge our differences and protect each other in hard times. Thanks for listening to Plague and Persecution, and make sure to check out our 4th episode recorded by my peer Maddie.